This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, True Seekers and True Crime Junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Let's welcome to the show today, Harriet Suchet.
Okay, good morning. It's freezing today, but it's...
seems to be the realm for the...
Quick, though.
What's that?
I said it should warm up quicker now, I hope. Anyways.
We're waiting for it. 1 minute snow, 1 minute heat, 1 minute rain. That's just California. Welcome to lovely California. Okay, so I have some laundry and research while we're waiting for Lindsay to join us. I had done some. Oh, there she is. Yes, we can. Good morning, Lindsay. Hello. All right. So we just hopped back into the presentation from last week. I did do some research. First thing I wanted to correct is that. Hello. Can you not hear us?
I'm still here.
Hi, Nolan. Good morning, Nolan. We'll welcome Nolan to the show instead. Seems technical difficulties has been the way of the day.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday it was terrible. I had to call in on a Zoom here in Sacramento.
Yes, we love technology. And of course, we're just told Skype is going away, so we're going to lose one of our availabilities for phone calls in. But we're going to do our best here. And it looks like we've got Lindsay back with us.
Yeah, they kicked me out. I don't know. How are you?
We're doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
Well, still trying to find a car, so.
Oh, good noise. Oh.
Yeah.
What's that?
I'm selling a pickup, Toyota 5-speed.
I'm looking for a Bronco 4x4.
Okay, can't help you.
Oh, you said you're selling a Toyota. Yeah, but you guys are states and states and states away.
Yeah.
What's funny
we'll talk later about that Toyota.
If you did have one, I still could get it from you because I like to buy in other states. I'm like a weirdo, so.
You like really being surprised with what you end up with. You ever been car fished?
No.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so back to our presentation. I actually did I had a reach out from Kaz Bagarazio, which is the individual who's very interested in the JonBenet Ramsey case. He was the one that believes that Bill McReynolds is the suspect in that case because he played Santa at JonBenet Ramsey's house 2 days before her murder. But we showed via People magazine that Bill McReynolds had been cleared from DNA, but I had made a mistake and I had indicated that he worked with Murdoch, and he corrected me, stating that he worked with John Walsh and America's Most Wanted, not Murdoch. I haven't really gotten into what it was that he worked with John Walsh on. Maybe it was an episode for something, or if he was literally working on the team with them. I'm not really clear on that.
Is it America's Most Wanted, a Fox show?
Well, we need to know. I need to know at least.
Yeah, no, I do plan on asking him. I just haven't had an opportunity since he's in the JonBenet Ramsey realm. That's approximately, 15 years ahead of our time right now. So we're in a time warp waiting to catch up with him. And yes, Nolan, to answer your question, it is owned by Murdoch. So I guess in essence, when I said with Murdoch, he was just meaning not personally with Murdoch, but with the show and John Walsh.
There is a tenuous.
Yeah, I wasn't too far off base. At any rate, I also did some research on revocable trust and irrevocable trust, which was eaten at me because I know that when I went through my probate classes for legal assisting, that there was a distinct difference. So I wanted to look that up, and now I understand what's going on with the Murdoch case. So basically, a revocable trust can be they allow you to avoid probate and distribute your assets to your loved ones according to your wishes. A revocable trust can also help you plan for the event of your incapacitation, as it allows a successor to step in and manage your assets. During your lifetime, though, you can use and spend your assets as you normally would, which means you can also make changes at any time you want. An irrevocable trust, however, the assets are placed in an irrevocable trust that are removed from your control, and you can no longer spend or use them. Irrevocable trust can be a good choice for Medicaid planning or to protect a loved one, such as with a special needs trust. Any assets moved into an irrevocable trust are no longer considered part of the estate and may not be counted against Medicaid or Social Security eligibility requirements. In certain circumstances, establishing an irrevocable trust may also reduce tax liabilities. So what I'm hearing here is we're basically removing it from the estate, so when you die, you don't have estate taxes on it at the end.
Both trusts do that. Both types.
What's that?
Both types of trusts do that. And
well, the revocable trust, you're still taxed on those assets. You still have estate planning taxes that are, it even states in the revocable trust that you have to pay those taxes on the estate as a method of dispersing, obviously, the trust. But what the irrevocable trust, one of the caveats that I understood is that you name somebody else the trustee. So you're not in control of this anymore. So I believe what he's done is he's probably named somebody as the administrator or the trustee of the trust to handle the trust. And he's wanting to make that change. He's wanting to pull assets out of it and give them solely to his older son. But what this says here is that you cannot make those changes without a court order. So basically, if you place everything into an irrevocable trust, the only way to make a change is to get a court order to approve that change, and all the beneficiaries have to agree. So here we have several siblings that are not agreeing with Murdoch's choice to remove Fox Entertainment from the trust to give solely to his eldest son, and that's what they're fighting about in court. So it's probably not that he is incapacitated.
Right. Irrevocable trusts are rare. Revocable are the standard ones because you have more control. And
not a lot of people have the availability or the type of funds that Murdoch does to be able to take assets and set them over here and say, I'm never going to touch them again. You know, I don't need them for my life.
Is if you maybe have early signs of dementia or physical ailments that you know are going to get worse, then you might consider irrevocable. Otherwise, if you have sound mind and you want to control your own assets, you do a revocable.
Well, revocable has a provision for when you're incapacitated. It takes 2 doctors to deem you incapacitated before the co-trustee can take over. It allows you to name yourself as a trustee and a co-trustee if you'd like. The difference, like I said, with the irrevocable is that you have to name somebody completely different. You're not allowed to be in control of those assets at all. And again, not many people have enough money to be able to do that. So if I place my house in a trust and I need to refinance it, I certainly don't want to go the irrevocable route, right? Because I can't touch that asset anymore. I can't do anything without court approval and beneficiary approval. And so, but one of the things that I paid attention to was that it can't be counted against Medicaid or Social Security. So if you go into a home and it's basically a way of making yourself look like you're defunct. You have no money because your assets are controlled by this trust. You have nothing in your estate so that Medicaid can't come back and say, you owe us all this money because there's nothing left in your estate, if you will. Yeah, it's a way to avoid paying back the system.
Yeah, that's one benefit. But I rarely, if ever, recommend irrevocable unless, like I say, there's physical or mental issues with the trustor.
Well, and you have major amounts of money.
Right.
Anyways, last week we had finished up with the sale of the Lady Ghislaine yacht of Robert Maxwell to Rupert Murdoch's ex-wife. And of course, we were discussing how that came about. And we had gotten into the last article, which says, Why, though, of all yachts in all the world, would former Mrs. Murdoch, now Anna Murdoch Mann de Peester, having twice married since divorcing Murdoch in 1988, have chosen to buy this particular yacht? Author John Preston offers the following explanation in the very final paragraph of his book, Fall, The Mystery of Robert Maxwell, which features a photograph of the Lady Ghislaine on the front cover. He writes in 2017 that Rupert Murdoch's former wife, Anna, decided that she wanted to buy a yacht. Their son, James, a keen sailor, offered to help. A few weeks later, he found just what he was looking for, a boat called the Lady Mona K, on the market for $14.5 million. His mother went to have a look and liked what she saw. It was only after buying the Lady Mona K that Anna learned the yacht's name had been changed years earlier. It had previously been called the Lady Ghislaine. Perhaps, he says, but the Times, one of Rupert Murdoch's newspapers, knew about the yacht's history, reporting shortly before the former Miss Murdoch bought it from a Saudi Arabian lawyer that the Lady Mona K was on the market, and it was, in fact, Lady Ghislaine with a refurbished guardrail. So this was an open secret in yachting circles. So basically what he's saying is that they knew exactly what they were buying. They knew exactly who this boat had previously been owned by. And I'm guessing with that refurbished guardrail,
I got to mute myself.
Isn't that kind of the story where they'd indicated that Robert Maxwell had fallen overboard due to a faulty guardrail?
Well, they said
was...
he fell. He might have got pushed or jumped or
yeah.
But the other thing is, that was my take too, that she's probably been on that damn yacht before.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Maxwell and Murdoch were competitors, but they were kind of partners in crime as well, shall we say. So I bet
trying to monopolize the news.
I think she was personally familiar with that boat.
Yeah, and it seems that she was.
One comment on Maxwell too, boy, he sure went downhill appearance-wise, because he was a relatively handsome man back in the days. Some of the other pictures you showed last week, he wasn't a bad-looking guy, but in those pictures we just saw, he looked terrible.
Right? Yeah, here we have him looking
pretty down for some of the other
pretty
ones.
fly.
Yeah.
But then so did Murdoch, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah, he definitely did. He looks like a crusty, bald-headed man now.
All right, let's not the ad hominem arguments and beat up on their appearances. Moving on. All right, actually right now, yes, go ahead.
Can I interject something really quick? I heard for a long time that Mick Jagger's ex was Rupert Murdoch's girl.
Which one?
Jerry Hall.
Wow.
I think it was Jerry Hall.
Huh.
So that's pretty interesting.
But we know how rumors fly around.
After Jerry Hall.
I just had something removed on Facebook that said that it was not factually correct, that it came in from a satire newspaper or news source, which made me kind of just shake my head and go, well, how did it end up here to begin with? Because I clearly didn't post it on my own accord. I only repeated the post because I thought it was funny. And second off, that's what we're led into believe by people putting out false news. And it's really those people they should be going after. Stop fact checking us. Go fact check the individuals who are putting the information out and block them from putting it out. They have these capabilities.
What was the information?
It was something in regards to Nancy Pelosi and receiving USAID funds for her winery or something. It was, it's always politically attached. And when it's attached to a politician, I suspect that they don't oftentimes want that information getting out to begin with. So, of course, they fact checked it, took it down, and said it was part of some satire. Well, stop the people with the satire. Stop allowing them to report false news that the rest of the Americans start to believe.
Yeah, fact check the source.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, 100%. All right, so we're going to go ahead now and play an intro from Lindsay McBrayer. She has put together in regards to her research on John Walsh, and I would like to have that played at this point, and then we can talk about it afterwards.
Today, on Finding the Zodiac, we expose John Walsh.
Watch the only television show that's endorsed by the FBI.
Paradise Island. And discuss connections with the cabal, media, and elites, and none other than the Zodiac.
Before we go, let's review tonight's cases.
And tonight, it's all about justice, because we need your help to catch the best. Personally guarantee you'll be protected. If you're afraid, you can remain anonymous. We don't tape the calls, we don't trace the calls. We just need the tips to get these guys off.
Let's make the world a much smaller place for these scumbags. So let's get right to it.
Okay. That was kind of an interesting
montage
election. Yeah. So how long ago did you put that together, Lindsay?
That was about sometime last year, early last year. When I
that was pretty cool.
When I was getting into everything with Murdoch and everything, and discovering that he was actually connected, he's connected with all these big people, including that big one, which is Murdoch.
So I noticed that the Paradise Island showed the view of a hotel, and that to me looked like the Atlantis in the Bahamas. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's actually
I've been
Paradise
there.
Island, the Paradise Island Hotel. It was an old.
Yeah, I've been there twice.
Whoa. Rich girl.
Yeah. And that one clip was showing that news clipping was showing that when John Walsh was made the director of that hotel and
Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most amazing hotels I think I've ever been to. The first time I had actually gone on a cruise. We ported and we just basically cruised through it. The second time that I went, my company, for being top sales, had actually put us up there for the trip, the all expense paid vacation to the Bahamas. So I actually spent the entire 8 or 9 days in the Atlantis Hotel. One of the things that they made sure we knew at that particular point in time, and if you guys go back and look at that, there is what looks like a bridge between two buildings of the hotel. That is actually one massive suite. And they said Howard Hughes, like Howard Hughes, who's the one? Oh, is he the Playboy person or the?
That's Hugh Hefner. That's
Hugh Hefner. Okay. Hugh Hefner actually was there at the time in that hotel or something. This is a good 30-something years ago. Like, it's been a very long time since I've been there. But I thought that was extremely interesting. That's where the elite went to stay, was in that particular suite. I can't imagine what that looked like, because the rest of the hotel, I just spent the entire time with my jaw on the ground thinking to myself that without this opportunity from this great company that I was with, I would never have ever been, staying at this particular hotel. Absolutely beautiful. All right. So that takes us back to, let's see. I had on my slide next was Walsh, Sears, and the accusations of drugs. So we did find an article in regards to a lawsuit that Walsh was in. We did kind of touch on the fact that one of his close friends had stayed with him in Rivet at some point in time and had an affair. He also accused or stated that they commonly used marijuana and cocaine. So that is kind of your cocaine connection, correct?
Yep.
So now doing it is
at that time, before Murdoch became his boss at Fox, you have this mob-looking guy. Even in the newspapers, the pictures of him is like, dude, what? Like, he wears his sunglasses and his little coat, and he just looks like he's mob. There's no denying it in that picture. And so, I mean. And then he was in way more mess than anyone else in the hotel industry. So, and there's actually a whole presentation I have of the Diplomat Hotel and all of their people and all that went on there and the shenanigans with drugs and cartel.
Yeah, it all seems to kind of float itself right around each other. So while we have this understanding that he does it, doesn't necessarily mean at this point we have any proof that he is actively dealing it or transporting it or anything like that. But that's where I see that connection has been made. The friend's name was James Campbell, and the judge, J. Cale Lee, said that the deposition was going to be allowed in, that this would be public information. And I think the ultimate result was that Walsh had decided to dump that particular lawsuit because he claimed that it was kind of distracting from his goal in finding children. Well, you can't let something like that out of the bag and then become, part of America's Most Wanted and working with the FBI if it's known that you're all involved and all up to your neck in this kind of stuff.
And I believe that the Sears attorneys defending Sears in that case were 100% going to reveal it all.
Well, of course, if they were going to be culpable, I mean, I read somewhere that Reve could not account for the hour previous to Adam's abduction. She couldn't and wouldn't discuss the hour up to that point. So what was going on and why wouldn't she and why couldn't she? That really kind of sense.
And there's all different kind of stories at different points, and even in every polygraph, there's different time.
What do you mean a different time?
Like it was only 45 minutes that she was gone. It was only 30 minutes before she was gone. They left the house at 10:40, or they left at the house at 11:40. Like it's like all kind of different times that they keep changing all throughout the records.
And if you go to a mall, the natural notion is you've set your kids up to play in this video game place, which, used to be a thing that you could do back in the day. My dad used to do it, set us up and then go off bowling for 3 hours, but we were in the same location generally. But he didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what he was doing. And it would have been so easy for her to say, I went shopping. Right. But then I'm sure she would have had to have proved up with a receipt or something to state that she was actively doing that. So what are you doing by dropping your child off? And who knows that you do this as an activity? Drop your child off at the mall and run off to take care of business.
In one of John's statements in the case files, he states that Reve wouldn't even like for him to go outside alone at their house and ride his bike. So why would you let him alone in that store for a video game to go look for a lamp that was on sale that John had told Reve about in the newspaper that he had saw? And then when she gets there, goes over to the lamp section, apparently they are all sold out of the lamps or don't even have any.
And that takes an hour to figure out? Wow.
Yep.
How old was the child?
6.
Oh, wow, that's way too young to leave alone.
Way too young. Yeah. I was like at least probably 11, 12.
Yeah. And no, 10, 25.
Okay. So
I have to go.
Okay.
I have to go.
So okay. Take care. So other things that I had skipped across in my research was on the Otis O'Toole, lost evidence and multiple confessions to hundreds of other killings due to inside information. We had Henry Lee Lucas, written confession by Schaefer, and an informant Slater seems to be a huge push to get this case closed on Toole. It says Adam Walsh disappeared from a Hollywood mall on July 27th, 1981. 2 weeks later, fishermen discovered his severed head in a canal 120 miles away. The rest of his body was never found. Toole confessed twice to Adam's murder, but he had confessed to hundreds of other killings, and police determined most of the confessions were lies. Officials were never able to verify his confessions because of a series of errors they made in the investigation, including losing the blood-stained carpeting from Toole's car, preventing DNA testing, and the car itself. So they just lost.
Yeah.
An entire car. And this is like losing John Mark Carr's computer that had child pornography on it that ultimately resulted in him being acquitted or basically released and never even tried or charged for his crimes. It says Toole's niece later told Walsh that her uncle gave a deathbed confession to Adam's murder in September of 1996. I think that person's grasping and reaching. Wagner acknowledged and apologized for the mistakes that were made in the investigation, but said detectives were always led back to Toole. Come on, you guys. This is like the narrative of the Zodiac, and everything keeps leading back to Arthur Lee Allen. Can we see the commonalities that are occurring? It's ridiculous.
And his IQ was so low. And I'm not to say that that's not anything, not to do with anything, but his IQ was so low, and the fact that he could even pull something off like that would be just insane. Just like Henry Lee Lucas.
And get away with it.
Just like Henry Lee Lucas was supposedly a serial killer in Texas, and he killed all these people. Well, then they came back and finally said most of those confessions were false, and that was his buddy.
And he was fed information, of course. And I do believe that in my research, I also found indications that Toole was also fed information as well. So why is everybody around the United States, the, Texas Rangers, the, John Walsh situation and how high up he became, why are all of these people trying to pin all these murders on these two individuals that really, and I look at it this way. Have you ever seen a child, if you have children and you have a young child, 5, 6 years of age, the willingness of that child to want to go with somebody, I promise you, if they're an ugly person, they are not going with them.
Oh yeah.
Kids have they can't withhold their thoughts, feelings, or even their facial gestures when it comes to something that they find displeasing. So I would think that you would probably
it's that there was a bunch of older boys there, and lots of people there, but no one saw anything.
Right.
That's very odd.
Yeah. This article goes on to say our agency has devoted an inordinate amount of time seeking leads to other potential perpetrators rather than emphasizing Otis Toole as our primary suspect. He said Otis Toole has continued to be our only real suspect. You've devoted an inordinate amount of time. Where are I haven't really seen very many other suspects that they've named. Oh, here it is. Yeah. The detective fed him info. In 1990, and in 1988 memo, Broward detectives said they discovered that Jesse Terry, the Jacksonville detective who said he heard Toole's first confession and had done exactly the same thing 5 years earlier, feeding the impressionable Toole confidential details of the Walsh case and setting in motion the agonizing cycle of confessions and denials. So this was an article in the Palm Beach Post on Saturday, February 17th of 1996. So interesting. Go ahead.
What would be your motive for feeding this person false information to get him to confess? Are you trying to protect the actual perpetrator?
That's my point.
Yeah.
And close out cases. I think that Henry Lee Lucas was to close out the Zodiac cycle. Crimes that could be literally tied back if everything was put together, and they were desperately looking to either solve the Zodiac cases on somebody who was already dead and couldn't have committed some of them, and also to separate the cases or make them appear as though they're not part of one entire group. And I think that that's exactly what's going on with Toole. So basically they're, it says, Toole took detectives to a dirt road 4 miles from where Adam's head was found and said he buried the rest of his body there. Nothing was found. So clearly he's lying, right? But he has the information of where the head was found, which he either could have found. I mean, they blatantly said it in news articles. He could have known where the head was found and took the detectives there pretending and stated that he buried the rest of the body was there, but the body wasn't there. So clearly he was lying.
And he was probably fed that information about the head.
Exactly. Either fed.
And this whole idea of solving or claiming to solve a case when you really know that it's not solved, that's like fool's gold. What is the satisfaction in that? It's just terrible police work.
It is terrible police work. Well, at least it deceives the American public into believing that the cops were legitimately solving cases when they in fact weren't, and to cover up the actual origin and purpose of this particular murder.
That's just wrong.
Yeah. So another article.
he even states in the I have videos of his. They're very old and kind of convoluted as far as like the sound. But I've kind of like made them to where you could hear it a little bit better without the background and stuff in court. And he states in a courtroom in front of a judge, the Audit Tool states that they fed him the information and how they did it and how long they did it and everything.
Nailed it. Same thing they did with Henry Lee Lucas, and the Texas Rangers were involved completely with that. And I have the tie back with Jack Terrence being from Texas and knowing how, he was, like I said, received a wedding invitation to Lyndon B. Johnson's wedding. He hunted on Lyndon B. Johnson's ranch. So if they're protecting somebody, they're protecting somebody who's in the know. Somebody who was part of this group. I have another article that says the John Edward Walsh Jr. connection and Rupert Murdoch, along with Bush and Nixon Watergate, connects to the Zodiac. This is Linz Mac. Oh, this is actually your email, and this was your introduction to me. It says, I have case filings of evidence of where it mentions a hit, possibly of Adam Walsh, due to the Watergate scandal, which we talked about that, with the cocaine industry, with CIA cover-ups, and we know all about what the CIA does with their hit guys, along with Jack Terrence, most likely whom was hired by them to murder all of his victims in the guise of the Zodiac.
Yeah, I think that there's that. I had that piece. If you wanted me to read it,
go for it.
Okay. Upon meeting with Mr. Harold Bloom, he advised the undersigned detective. Jack
No. I'm sorry, Lindsay. We already read that. That's what I was indicating, that we had already. I'm trying to skip across the things so we're not duplicating stuff for the public, but we did talk about Harold Bloom, his belief that the CIA. Yes. But I thought there were more interesting things in your post that we hadn't talked about, which was, let's see, I've been researching a lot lately on John Bonet case as well, and believe that John Ramsey had connections as well to the Zodiac through connections with Lockheed Martin in government operations used through his company, as well as knowing John Ramsey was also a former naval officer and served in the military, just as his father did, which the ransom note alluded to SBTC, which was what the Subic Bay fiasco that occurred with what was that, Cuba? Nolan?
I don't.
Subic Bay was where Bush had his boat.
Oh yeah, I got a slide on that one.
Oh, I don't remember that.
So basically the sign off on the ransom note for John Benet Ramsey was attributed to the Subic Bay fiasco, in which case Bush was involved with his own boat that he was looking to obtain oil. And I want to say that had something to do with Cuba, but when we get there, we'll talk about it.
It does, because guess who's not brother, but no, brother. Yeah, guess whose brother's wife is from Cuba?
Whose?
Jeb Bush.
Really?
Jeb Bush's wife is from Cuba?
Yep.
Wow.
Gotcha.
Well, that makes sense.
He had
From
money,
Florida.
he had money in the bank there too.
Wow.
Well, you went on to say that the same exact rope is seen in the home of Tim Bush, in which you've mentioned briefly in your show in regards to the Oakland County child killer a series. You can see this rope in many pictures of evidence after his suicide was taken of him, found in his home, and these were never tested or kept as any evidence or linkage to any of the killings. And it gets better. Also, we know Bush's father was CEO of GM Motors. We talked about that. But let's see. And at the time, many of Bush crimes committed, and he was caught but never served any time for them, and then he randomly commits this self-homicide. Then we have the island and Frank Sheldon and his buddy linkage to these cases. The island Frank Sheldon owned, known as Fox Island, where we know he flew little boys to and molested. Well, that island, after Frank Sheldon fled out of the country back then, now and then became state government owned and is still state government owned to this day. You said why? And you believe that the airport, or the landing strip, for this island was built by John Benet's grandfather, right?
Yep. There's documents of it.
And it says characters above, we also known to travel back and forth to California areas, all with their buddies, just like Jack did. It's obvious at this point they were all part of government CIA-backed killer cult, hence why no one knows who did what and the many cases that they can't solve. Let's see. Now to John Edwards. I have all the documents on his son, loads and loads of newspaper clippings, which some of them I can't read, but we're going to try to cover some of them. So basically, this article right here is the Harold Bloom. Who is Harold Bloom?
He was I believe he was he did something with the news, a journalist, I believe.
And so he's the one that believed that the CIA was paying John Wesley Davis to kill these individuals, such as Bob Crane, Gig Young, which it shows, my research shows that him and his wife were a murder self-homicide. There was no suicide note and no apparent motive, but Bob Crane was also implicated in this, and John Walsh's son, all as a way to keep Harold Bloom's mouth shut in regards to what was going on with Watergate. The nowhere leads. Yes.
I was familiar with the Bob Crane stuff, but I didn't know Gig Young was murdered or he suicided or what happened with him.
My research indicates that the newspapers put out that he basically shot his wife of 3 weeks. So his brand new wife, he shot her and then took his own life.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, why spend the money on a marriage or a wedding?
And it was evidently because he won the Academy Award for They Shoot Horses, Don't They, when he was older in years. So it must have been not that long after he won the Academy Award. Makes no sense.
None whatsoever. You're at the top of your life. You're in a new marriage. You're happily in love. You know, you're 3 weeks into what is still the honeymoon phase, and all of a sudden you want to take hers and your own life. That just seems absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
Now, you also sent me a article, Lindsay, that is the nowhere leads. And I think this is where you started to talk about the Watergate connection. Do you have that in front of you?
Yep. I just pulled it up.
So that, I think, leads to basically some of the information that we've been talking about, if you want to read that off.
So yeah, basically it just says like what you just said. In the 1981, Hank Bloom of Vero Beach says that he knew things about Watergate and that a John Davis of Fort Pierce was being paid by the CIA to keep Bloom quiet by murdering Walsh and actor Gig Young and his wife, actor Bob Crane, and others. Davis says he didn't know Bloom, and Bloom later can't explain why the CIA didn't just kill him, police said. And then there's an
maybe that would have brought too much heat.
Here, and then the Toby theory is Palm Beach police receive an anonymous letter postmarked West Palm Beach in September 1981 that says they should check someone named Toby. The letter says Toby, who attended a homosexual self-help group called Acceptance, likely molested these young boys, and he also drove a blue van that was away for 3 or 4 days around the time Adam was oofed. And police spend 3 days trying to find out more about Toby, running down the owner of Rolls Royce and a butler at the Palm Beach home, but come up with nothing.
So basically, Toby is a ghost.
Yep. And then there's
blue van.
head photograph in August 1981 while cleaning a room at 306 Sanibel Inn in Daytona Beach. An employee says that he found a photograph of a young white male's head stuck in the bottom of the picture frame belonging to the motel, according to Volusia County Sheriff Office report. That's in the case files, but they found out who that was staying in that room. They questioned him. And they pretty much, they were actually kind of like, it was like a Cuban, Hispanic name. I can't remember his name exactly, but that was interesting. But I actually found out that somebody close to that person actually was construction workers at the Diplomat Hotel, actually was in connection with this guy that was staying at this room that they found this photograph in.
So you think they found this photograph at the... You think they found this photograph at the Diplomatic Hotel and then moved it to this inn?
Yeah.
Was the photograph identified as? Yeah, was the
they never found. I mean, it doesn't say anything in the case files about where even this photo is. So is there even a photo?
Right. And is it depicting Adam Walsh's head, or is it just a head of a young boy?
Yeah.
I gotcha.
They don't say.
All right.
They don't know. Okay.
Yeah. And so go on with Raymond now.
So the Raymond theory, Ronnie Carroll of Hollywood, Florida, tells police that he met a man named Raymond at a North Miami topless bar. Raymond bragged about oofing Adam Walsh, showing him photos of Adam both gone and alive. The police conclude that Carroll is a psychological liar, and eventually Carroll admits to making the whole thing up.
Oh, wow. So why even put that in here?
There's a lot of that. Yeah, exactly. Why would you put that in there? I guess to show people maybe that, oh, we're working the case. These are what we got so far.
But it's nonsense? Yeah. Why? If you're just throwing things out there for other people to grasp onto and other conspiracy theories for them to hop on the boat with.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the psychic. On the third day after Adam's abduction, Peggy Rogers Gordon tells the Hollywood Police Department that she has certain feelings that Adam is alive, and that later she gets in touch with Hervé Walsh and even draws a map showing where Adam can be found. Later still, she tells police, I had an attack and knew Adam Walsh was killed.
So again, leads us to nothing.
Exactly. And then obsessed. Terry Allen Green, 41, says that a week after Adam disappeared, he saw Adam drive away from a Mr. Donut in Melbourne with a man in a blue van. Detectives say that he is somewhat obsessed with this case, and a polygraph test was inconclusive.
Huh. So he can't be proven to be telling the truth.
Yeah, another one that's...
But that is the second repeat of the blue van. Is a blue van been seen at the Sears Mall? Is there some reason why they're focusing on a blue van?
So there was one of the children that they hypnotized and stated that he did see a blue van, and that there was a blue van moving fast away. And then that's when you get these sightings like this. Oh, well, there was a little boy saw in a van on this street on this day, and it's a lot of sightings of this blue van with a boy, but none were verified. Or I mean, they were supposedly verified, but none were verified that it was Adam or not, or even if it was Tool. But I found there is in the case files as well that these two construction workers that worked at the Diplomat, who at the time of Adam's head being found worked at a funeral home, and they actually owned a blue van.
Interesting. So the blue van could viably play into it, but were any of these sightings within the time frame in which Adam was alive? So we were talking, what, 2 weeks before his head's found, right?
Yeah.
So they wrapped all of this up about the blue van within 2 weeks, or were these sightings, they don't give any time frame for the sightings in how it relates to his abduction and death, but it's interesting that they throw it out. Let's go on with the oil drum, because I find this one interesting. Are you there, Lindsay? All right, the oil drum. An anonymous caller tells the Okeechobee Sheriff's Office that John Alden killed Adam and placed his remains in an...
My mom should have to move the chair. Okay. Sorry.
No, don't worry.
Oh, there you are.
There you are. Okay, read the oil drum for us.
Okay, so the oil drum. The anonymous caller tells the Okeechobee, that was bad, Sheriff's Office that John Alden killed Adam and placed his remains in an oil drum off State Road 70. Police determined that the caller is Kenneth Bosch, an ex-Riviera Beach police officer in a dispute with his neighbor, Merton Alden.
Oh. So now we've got police officers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to pin it on his neighbor because he's mad at him?
Yeah, right. And And you know it's a false lead, so you put that into the newspaper?
Yep.
Wow. All right, on sightings, I think that these are neither here nor there. We can probably skip past them, but they're just people who believe that they saw him throughout that 2-week period, I believe. But I felt like there was some in November 82. Fort Police find a photo album with numerous clips of Adam Walsh case in the possession of Edward Joseph Deatley of Fort Pierce, who was arrested. Deatley says he is a teacher and loves kids. I mean, extremely, and had been upset by the case. He said he kept albums of similar cases, but that they must have been stolen during his travels. So I don't know why. I mean, there are plenty of people out there that get obsessed with a case and will keep newspaper clippings. It doesn't suggest or mean that they're killers by any means.
And that drives me nuts when they pull that out of their butt.
Right. You have.
Well, we know that most that he claims to have other files and albums of these other cases, but the cops didn't find them. They only found the Walsh stuff. So that's kind of odd.
Yeah. Well, but clearly he's a collector of this type of stuff, and there's nothing. I look at me. Is somebody going to come in and say I'm the Zodiac because I have over 18,000 files?
That's exactly where my mind goes every time. I'm like, oh, well, I mean, they're going to find a lot of stuff at my house if that's evidence.
So I do see something on October 16th, 1991. Fort Pierce Police Chief Jim Gabbard gets an anonymous handwritten letter postmarked Orlando saying John Rezatar admitted to killing Adam in 1989. Hollywood police compare the handwriting to another anonymous letter written to the Tippin, Kansas police, which says Rezatar was guilty of an unsolved rape. Handwriting analysis reveals both letters were written by the same person. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation also received an anonymous letter accusing Rezatar of the murder of a 20-year-old, but they say Rezatar was in court in Ohio at the time of the murder. They identify the author as Tom Cronin, a mental patient, and Rezatar's former fraternity brother. So again, I just don't understand. They continue to feed us narratives that have no bearing, make no sense, cause us to look in other directions. Why don't you show us what you are looking at, what you do find to be credible? Because to say that you've checked out all of these leads just means you're running yourself in circles.
Yep.
Well, it looks
and
like we are all.
And then the van comes up again later, and somehow linked to Jeffrey Dahmer just because Jeffrey Dahmer just so happened to be working at a sub shop in Miami around the time.
But Dahmer wasn't known to take little kids, right?
No. There was one boy, and he was an older boy, and he was like 17.
Well, I know we're not quite at our 50-minute mark on the podcast, but we are at 10:50, which is where I have to cut it off. I want to thank both of you for being here. We'll continue on with this presentation that you have supplied us, Lindsay, next week. So everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next Friday.
See you soon.
Take care.
Oh,